Hey there, welcome to the channel. Let me ask you a question. What do you think makes a good coder? For me, that person has to have a solid understanding of the basics. So that's why today we are focusing on one of those crucial basics in React, components. So what exactly are components? To put it simply, almost every UI element you see in React application is usually built with components. Think of them as a Lego blocks that you piece together to create something amazing. So that's enough with the discussion. Let's dive right into the coding. So for this tutorial, the only things I have prepared separately are a CSS file, the one that is shown on the screen, and a new image which we'll be using for this lesson. As you know, the app component is the main one that gets loaded by default. And any changes made here in this file will be reflected on the UI immediately. Now let's go to index.tsx and we'll see that app is getting imported and loaded here, and this is the entry point for your React application. And if I remove this, you will not see anything in the UI. I'll just put it back. Next, we will create our first component. We will start by adding a new folder named dashboard. Inside this folder, the first thing I will do is add CSS file, that is styles.css, and copy the styles that I have prepared, but you're free to use your own. And I will add this in description, so don't worry about this particular file. The next thing I'll do is I'll create my first component called dashboard.tsx. Let me just import styles.css file that we just added. So this component will serve like a layout component where we'll render the page format. So I'm just creating a name function dashboard, no props, and I will simply return a div with a class name dashboard. Now nothing is being shown because we haven't made any changes in the index.tsx. I will head back to that and I'll just import dashboard from dashboard folder, and the name is dashboard itself. And I will add the component. Oh, I forgot one thing. I forgot to export the function itself. So export default dashboard. Now you will see it being rendered in the UI. In this dashboard component, I will be setting it up as a template. So let's add some proper styling. I'll structure it with div for a dashboard container and a div for main content and so on. This is just for demo purpose. We will have a header and a navigation sidebar and a content area. At the bottom, we will add a footer similar to that you would see in a typical website. Now let's create a new component for the header. I'll go back to the dashboard folder and create a new file called header.tsx. I will write out the code this time for learning purpose, but for the next time I'll show you a shortcut for auto-completing these kind of code. So I'll just add a header function with a dashboard header as text, and I will just export this default function that I have created. Now let's go back to the dashboard component, and I will import the header that we just created and replace this header comment with a header tag. As you can see in the UI, you're able to see dashboard header text which we added here. Now let's create a new component called sidebar.tsx. Writing out methods in components like this can be a bit tedious. So what I will do is I'll introduce you to something called snippets. So go to extension in your Visual Studio Code and you can download the snippet called ES7 React Redux. Now this is a snippet created by DSZ Natster, and this is the extension which provides you shortcuts to a lot of methods that we'll be using from now onwards. One of them is a name function, so that would be nfn. As you can see here, it creates a method and then you can import as well as export it using shortcuts. So from now on, I will be using these shortcuts to create methods and function. So let's create the first one. It would be sidebar, and for the props we'll not have anything, and in the return section we'll just use div sidebar, and we'll use the navigation links. So in this case I'm just using ULIs, home, profile, and one more called settings. Now let me export this. So I'm using the shortcut for this, export default sidebar. Oh, I missed a spelling mistake. Now let me just go back to the dashboard component file, and I will import the sidebar that we just created, and I will remove this comment and put the tag sidebar here. As you can see on the right hand side, you're able to see that data that we just created. Let's create another component, content.tsx. I'll do the same thing. I'll just fast forward this particular section as we have already done it multiple times. So dashboard content goes here, and the final thing is export default content, and I will just add this in the main dashboard component that we have created. So importing content, the method that we added, or the method that we exported from the content component, and add the tag here, and here we can see it on the right hand side. Similarly, I'll do it for footer. I'll just fast forward this section as well, and here we are adding it in the dashboard template or the main dashboard component file. Oh, I forgot the export again. So export default footer. Now all these components that we have created so far are not reusable components, and this is not the main selling point of components or why we create them. We mainly create components so it can be reusable. Now all these components are not reusable, so I'll just show you how you can create something. Let's say you need a button. Now I'll just create a button component. So this is an inline component which I'm creating. Not exactly a component yet, but this is just a method, and I'll just put button click me, and I will add that tag in this main content return section. So if you see on the right hand side, we can see a button. Now let's say I need to add that in the sidebar navigation section as well. So one way to do that is copy the whole method that we created and add that button here. But this is not how we write reusable code. So any changes which I make here will not be shown on the other button that we have created. In case you want to have the same stylings for all the button or same format for all the button. In this case we are using text. So let's make this component reusable, or let's make this code reusable. So what we can do is we can create a new component called button.tsx, and I'll just paste the method that I just copied, and I will export this method, export default button. Now let's go back to content, and we'll delete this code and we'll import the button component that we just created, and this should work as it is. Same thing can be done in the sidebar navigation component. I will import the button and it should work properly now. Now in case I change the text for the button, let's see what happens. Here if I change from click me to click now, it is getting reflected on both the places. So now this is how we create a reusable component. So this was one example. I'll just use one more example using the image that we already have. You can use any image you want. I will create image.tsx component and I will import the image file that we have in the assets folder. As you can see, it is one folder ahead, or it's in the parent folder, so we have to add assets reactjs.jpg, and I will create a component with an image source as reactjs. Let me just add a title as well, which would be logo, and the class name would be image, which is there in CSS. Now let's go to the content and import the component that we just created. So let's import that component. Import image, and we will add the image markup tag here. Oh, I forgot to add the export default method line. So as you can see, the image is being shown here, which is coming from the image component. Similarly, if you need to add it, let's say in the header, I can just copy the import line, paste here, and add the image tag in this div, and we can see the image in the header as well. Now this is how we create reusable components. I know this was a little bit longer, but this is helpful. So let me just recap. If the main component is loaded in index.tsx, we created our own component, and we have created this dashboard layout component, which has header, sidebar, content, footer, and then we have the reusable components that we created. As you can see, we have not used props or anything because I wanted this lesson to be specific to component. For the next lesson, we will dive deep into props, and hopefully I'll try to cover all the sections or all the important thing that is required for you to understand in props. So thank you everyone, and see you guys in the next lesson.